We've all been transported to worlds beyond our wildest imagination with books. But books are also a great vehicle to get together and exchange ideas. Welcome to Books du Jour. Come and join our authors at the table. A new guest, John Gilstrap, Endgame. Last night I was asking you pretty seriously if it was an Endgame in 2 words or 1 word, but you say 2 words. So it's not an existential novel.
It's not existential, and it fits better on the cover if it's 2 words.
Yes. So it's a Jonathan grave, singular?
Yes.
He doesn't go around digging graves, obviously. But so how many novels has it been on the series of Jonathan?
Endgame is the 6th book
in
the series. I'm writing number 7 right now, and number 8 is under contract.
Well, before, let's down 6. So I see this, we were talking about the cover. I see the Russian hammer or flag, the emblems, and the American flags, or some kind of eagle in the back, yeah? So the story is based in Russia meets America, or is it spying? Or?
The story is based in the United States that deals with a Chechen expat who has the secrets to the arming codes for a nuclear missile from the former Soviet Union that the Chechens have got a hold of. And the scientist that has that information is killed in the opening chapter of the book, and he ends up giving this code to his son, who doesn't know he has the code. And the whole world is, the Russians are trying to kill him, the Chechens are trying to get him, and the United States is trying to stop it all. So Jonathan Grave, my character, is the only neutral party that can get him back safely.
Yeah. So did you have to go to Chechnya to do some research?
No, I stayed in the United States.
Okay.
I'm not interested in going to Chechnya right now.
Well, you could be just to have a flavor of the place.
Right.
What about the Russian nuclear weapons storage and capabilities? Did you have a lot of studies to do there?
That's my background.
Okay.
Is the weapon systems, explosives, chemical weapons.
Okay.
That's what I did in my previous days.
Okay. I thought you were in the fire department.
I did that too. I had a very diverse background.
There's a lot of sparkles in your life. Yes?
There you go.
Okay. So what took you into this weapon field? I mean, you did a Master in Science, right?
I got a Master's of Science degree in Safety Engineering.
Okay.
And the first job I was offered was for a company that manufactured explosives.
Really?
Yeah. And this was in Virginia in 1982, 83. Which was the beginning of the Reagan years. And
but we're talking a bullet or a rocket?
We're talking rockets for the most part.
Okay. Which are what?
Big rocket motors for the space shuttle. And other weapon systems, the missiles, nuclear missiles that we launch, or some of the air-to-air, air-to-ground, ground-to-air. We did all of it.
Yeah, so that's a question people, I'm sure, have been asking about. We talk about nuclear missile. They are rockets, really. They have an engine and a storage of fuels. Yeah, right.
They have multiple stages of rockets.
Okay.
Depending on what system we're talking about, they can start with a liquid fuel rocket that then ultimately, once it gets into orbit and it starts coming back down, then there are solid propellants that take it to where it needs to go and drop off its payloads.
I grew up in northern France, where there was this German's bunker left over from the war, and there was still the launch rocket for the V1 and V2s.
Oh, wow.
You know, and they tell you that you're 40 miles away from London, but that's where they did it from. You know, and it's always intriguing to see. So I'm taking you that because you're talking about missiles in Chechnya. Are they talking about small nuclear weapons, or are they talking about big fuel jet rockets?
These are it's the warhead itself we're talking about, which is artillery size. So, yay big, and it's like 50 kiloton, which is small for.
Let me ask you a question in reverse. Do you find your background in technology and a weapon becoming almost like an impediment to writing? So you know so much information that you have to write about that?
To a degree, because I've attracted a fan base that really understands this stuff.
Okay.
So when you have people who understand about rockets and explosives and guns, I'm a gun guy too, and if you get a detail wrong, the further you get into the weeds on details, of course, the further up there you are. And you open yourself to criticism for the little stuff. So in that degree, it's not an impediment, but it certainly focuses the mind. I got to be really, really careful not to get that stuff wrong, because it's either right or it's wrong. There's no middle ground.
But would you write a medical thriller, for example?
A medical thriller?
Yes.
No.
No, no interest, no expertise.
No, because it's the same thing. There's so many things that go wrong. I was an EMT for 15 years, so I know.
Because the fire department, you see a lot of, you're close to life and death, right?
Right. So, but my job was just to stabilize them and drop them off at a hospital and then go back to the firehouse. Okay. Medicine is about making a well again, and I have no idea how to do that. So.
I'm sure you have a lot of story about that. So how did the writing came about for you?
It's all I've ever been good at.
Okay.
Ever since.
Well, you seem to be very good in nuclear physics, no?
Well, yeah, but in terms, high school and grade school and all of that, it's.
Oh, the academic world. Okay.
I was terrible at sports, and I was terrible at all the things that boys are supposed to be good at, and but I was always good at writing. I could cough out a story or a research paper or just overnight, and very early on. I read voraciously, and very early on, I wanted to be a novelist. And the rest of it, you don't go to school to be a novelist. You go to school to learn how to do something. So I was attracted through the fire department to the safety engineering stuff, and it leads to that. Yeah. But I was always writing. I was always writing. My first published novel, which was Nathan's Run in 1996, I think it came out, was actually my fourth book. Yeah. And
so there were 3 in the drawers.
Yeah, I wrote the other 3.
Why do you think Nathan took up?
I think it was a combination of story and craft. I finally, those 3 practice books, each one sucked less than the one that preceded it. And Nathan's Run was the first one I wrote, and I thought, this is as good as books that I have read. Okay. And it was the first, it was, it's a story of a 12-year-old boy who kills a juvenile detention center guard. And he runs off, and he becomes the focus of the national media as sort of the poster child for all that's wrong with the children of America.
That was made in the film, right?
No, it was not. It was sold to the film. It was never made into a film.
It was never made, okay.
So I think it just resonated with people. It did really well, and it launched a career.
Okay, very cool. Do you do screenwriting as well? You're talking about film here?
Yes, I've adapted works by Nelson DeMille and Thomas Harris and Norman MacLean and my own.
And what's the process like? Because it's a very different format. It's very formulaic,
It is, but in adapting somebody else's story, at least you have the basic story structure. So it's a matter of making the book conform to this new structure. And in the process of doing that, of course, there's a lot of streamlining that goes down. You combine characters, and that's why very rarely are people satisfied. If they love a book, they're often not very satisfied with the film version of it because of the changes that are made. Yeah,
but it's a different medium.
It is a different medium. It is a different medium.
I think it's always that mistake that the book should reflect the film or vice versa. So you're talking about you have a new book. After this one, you were almost finished with it, or?
No, I'm a little over halfway done.
Halfway. So it's a Jonathan story again?
It's another Jonathan story.
And where is it going this time?
This one is called Against All Enemies.
And you have a title, okay.
Yes, and it will be out this time next year in 2015. Okay. And he's thwarting a coup to overthrow the President of the United States.
Oh, in America, okay.
Within the series, I've created a fictional, very corrupt presidential administration. It kind of plays in each of the books, President Darmond. And it's sort of reached a tipping point now, and Jonathan's going to be put in the position of actually having to defend this guy that he hates. And it's been pretty cool so far. I'm only halfway through. There's plenty of time to screw it up, but right now it's feeling good.
When you talk about corruption and always talk like nuclear weapons, do you think there's a real danger for some kind of a small terrorist group to come up with a big solution to their quest?
I think that there's a real problem with terrorist groups getting a hold of a nuclear warhead. That's not hard to do. Yeah. It's fairly hard to set them off, which is what the end game is about. And it's really hard to deliver them. So, but to actually get the bomb, particularly now with all the things that are going on. Well, crafting uranium into a warhead, it's pretty specialized business. But there are a lot of countries that are working on it right now. I mean, Iran is working on it, and presumably, you never. And once something is produced, now you got to guard it and make sure that it stays in the right hands. And ideally, that happens in a politically stable environment where it doesn't change radically from time to time. So I think there's a real potential for really scary stuff. We have a 9/11 here, and then this seems like around the world we don't talk much, but there's a lot of
not you talk about coup, but bomb threat and bomb scared and actually real damages. You know, do you think we will see more of that in the States?
More terrorist activity with explosive?
With explosive, yeah.
I would think so.
Yeah. I'm thinking about in terms of energy, we have a fracking going on, and people are debating whether we should have electric cars. So the energy has to be created, right? So if coal energy has too much pollute too much, we have to create nuclear stations, power stations based on fossil fuel. These are very dangerous sites and very vulnerable sites for a terrorist group to create a lot of damage. You know.
Actually, I don't think they are. I think that, well, not in the United States. The United States nuclear power plants are designed with so many levels of security, and they are so well protected. I mean, you could drop bombs on them and nothing's going to happen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's not Chernobyl? It's not.
No. I mean, people think of 3 Mile Island here in the mid-'80s,
that's right,
late
big
70s.
Leakage, yeah.
But there was no leakage. It was the absolute disaster. It was a complete meltdown of the reactor, and no discernible radiation ever got out of it. Now, Chernobyl was a different set of engineering under different circumstances, and so over there, you know, outside of the United States, I think it's a big problem. Inside the United States, it's not. My big concern in terms of terrorist attacks in the United States, I think the most vulnerable targets, watch what's going down the railroad sidings, you know, and watch what's on the road. You've got all kinds of really spectacular hazardous materials. Now, you're not going to kill thousands, but you can certainly do a lot of damage.
Sure.
You know, blow one of those things up on a bridge, and you take the bridge out, and now people can't get to work. And you know,
chaos,
so I think there's a lot of vulnerability here.
Well, we can't wait to read the next adventure of Jonathan's adventure. But in the meantime, we can read Endgame, and my guest was John Gilstrap. Where are you based, by the way?
Outside Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. So thank you for being on Books du Jour, and all the best with Endgame.
Thank you much. It's been fun.